That's the man they call the Belfast Cowboy. It is Van Morrison, Real Gone.
Yeah, I'm real.
It's a Thursday afternoon, 3 sleeps till the man with the funny beard and the red suit pays a visit.
What's the frickin' sin in the midnight hour?
I was writing my letter to Santa earlier today. I was using a number 2 pencil, and apparently the number 2 pencil is the most popular pencil in the world. And I don't get that, because it's number 2. You'd expect it to be number 1, wouldn't you? Now, here's the thing. There is an area of Kingsley in Northampton that's called Poets' Corner. It's up by the racecourse, the names of the roads taken after famous poets. So it was only right and proper that my first guest this Thursday afternoon should have spent his entire life in Poets' Corner. Why? Well, because he's a poet and he's a lyricist. His name is James McInerney, and he's with me now. He's been a wordsmith for a while, and some of his offerings are now being put to music in a transatlantic collaboration that we'll talk about in a few minutes' time. But first, James, welcome along. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
When did you start penning poetry and lyrics then?
Well, it was since about 1998. Didn't really have any reason to start it. There was no influences of kind of like poetry. I didn't read poetry before that, so I don't know why it started. But I started writing in 98. Done my first poem then, and I'm up to about almost 200 now.
Goodness me, I never got poetry at school. That was my idea of English hell. That was to sit there on an afternoon when it was sunny outside and would rather be kicking a football around in the playground, and they would dissect these poems. I wandered lonely as a cloud. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, it means he was just bumbling around in my... Oh no, that's not what it means. And they tried to drum up all these fancy philosophical and intellectual reasons why the poet put what he did.
I never really got into the old, the Shakespearean stuff and all that. It didn't appeal to me either, because it was too confusing and a bit stuffy, really.
Yeah, a bit old-fashioned, I think.
Yeah, I think people nowadays like the new kind of poetry, which is really kind of like reading someone's diary, really, because it's full of their emotions and how they felt at the time. And I think that's what appeals to people, not the old style, how it's written. It doesn't really appeal. So people like the new form of poetry, which anyone can do. You don't have to be, professional at it. You can just have a go at writing your thoughts down on paper.
Yeah, and I guess also the pop music revolution, sort of early to mid-60s onwards, gave people a chance to put to music some of the things that they'd been writing, and that opened it up to a whole new generation, didn't it? You've
got poems and lyrics pretty much cross each other in that sense. So what could be a poem could also be seen as words for a song, and which works really, really well.
Yeah, do you make any distinction then between the two?
I don't, because I think poetry... I don't like defining it as a single area. I think it can work so versatile that it works with anything.
It's very personal, though. I mean, personal to the writer, but also to the person reading it.
Yeah.
And I guess there are always lots of different interpretations.
Yeah, I mean, I write my poetry, a lot of it's from me as well, my personal feelings, but also you can use your imagination and pretty much write anything you want. You don't have to have experienced every single poem you wrote. It just depends how good you are with your imagination and your words.
My next question to you was, what sort of subjects appeal to you then as a writer?
The very emotional ones. So, I mean, I like writing fun ones, but the really emotional kind of love lost, that kind of thing, really appeals.
Oh, you poor thing.
I know, I'm too depressing, that's my problem. But that appeals to a lot of people, because a lot of people have felt that in their life, But I do others as well, but they're the real strong emotion ones appeal
and
to me.
Reflections, are they, on people's lives? Not necessarily your own. But
in some point or other, someone's been hard done by or had something to them, and they've felt it and they feel those emotions, and every piece should be very emotional.
No, for it to be a poem, does it have to rhyme?
No, not at all. I've read tons of people's poems that have all put them on, and it doesn't have to rhyme. I think it has to just say the message that you want it to say.
And what fascinates me is that there's a sort of mathematical certainty, though, isn't there, to the pattern of the words?
There is, and people try and get too technical with them, and I think that's where you start to lose what you're writing about. If you try and be too technical, I've done it myself, and I've tried to edit every single poem so much and thought I don't like that, but sometimes just writing it straight out and not thinking about it too much really works better than trying to be too technical with the details.
I guess the sort of 21st century, 2011 equivalent of poetry in terms of that sort of brevity and structure could be Twitter, couldn't it?
Yeah.
In the electronic age. And I find Twitter a lot of it a complete waste of time, I have to say. But, you know, what I do find interesting, I find frustrating because it's so limited. It takes a particular type of person to be able to do that well, and I think it takes a particular type of person to be able to write poetry well. Yeah. It's a very disciplined approach to a very creative process.
Well, I write all my poetry with music. So I listen to classical film scores, and Pride and Prejudice is one of my biggest ones, the soundtrack, the Keira Knightley one. And I use that to write music. So
You've just got to think about Keira Knightley, haven't you? Come on.
That's how I write all my poems. Literally, it's to music. I need to have that emotional song through my ears and the earphones, and that's how I write each piece.
So would you say you're more of a lyricist then?
Well, you could do. And that's probably why some of them do work in that way with YouTube. But I think I have to have that music on, that emotional music, to really, really get my mode in my mind, what I'm going to write about.
Well, let's just have a listen to something that has been put to music. That's a lady called Annie, and this that you're hearing is the result of a transatlantic collaboration between James McInerney in Northampton and Annie, not just on the other side of the Atlantic, but the other side of the American continent in San Francisco. How did that come about?
Well, basically, I searched through YouTube because I had the idea, lyrics, they work with my poems. And I found her voice trawling through all the latest uploads, and I was really, her voice stands out a mile.
So she wasn't known to you before then?
Oh, definitely not. I just kind of had the idea that I would send this message to her and say, do you want to do this?
You cyber stalker, you.
Yeah, that's me. And I said, do you want to do this? This is my lyrics. These are all my words. Choose which one you want. And have a go. No pressure or nothing like that. And she came back with that, and I was really surprised.
What do we know about Annie? She was born and grew up in Cologne in Germany and then moved to the United States. She's been there, about 17 years or so?
Yeah, and I think she hasn't really done anything, which is the good thing, because she hasn't really done anything major with the work. I think she just plays the guitar and has a go posting things on YouTube. So there's no previous experience there of doing loads of things. So when it actually came about of asking her, she grabbed it with both hands because it was a real confidence boost to her. Yeah,
but she wasn't going to do that unless she felt that she could connect with the works.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I did send all my works to her, and I said, pick and choose which one feels right to you. Pick one which you think you would work with the kind of style you have. And she came up with that one, and I was really pleased.
Now, because the great thing about YouTube and the internet is that it's a touch of a button, as we always say, it goes global in an instant. What sort of response has this been getting on YouTube?
Loads. I've had loads of messages in my inbox of how amazing her voice is. On Twitter, because I'm on Twitter as well, everyone messages me on there, just heard it. And I noticed that if you put something on YouTube, it basically shares it with loads of websites. So if you type it into Google, you'll find that she's on loads of different websites, which is kind of spreading the word around. So it's been really good positive feedback.
So from Poets' Corner in Kingsley, Northampton, in the heart of England, your words are now being heard via the internet and over the ether on the radio around the world.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to really use the internet now. Social networking sites are the way forward. Everyone's on them. Twitter, Gmail, Facebook, they're all using them. So that's the next step forward. You can't be thinking of selling a book in the shop because, to be honest, everyone's on the internet. There's probably more people on the internet now than there are, outside in the world.
Of course, some people will want a book or a CD because they can sell it. The downside of the internet is that once it's gone out there, it's sort of freely available to everyone. So, you're not obviously looking to make money from this at this stage.
Well, I mean, digital books are probably the way forward with the Kindle. And then that's probably more important now than actual hardback books in the stores. So, I mean, I think that's the way that the world's going as well.
I think the best investment I made in the last 3 years, one of those e-readers, Yeah,
and that's the way I think it's going. So I think the next step... Obviously, I'm going to get a book out next year, hopefully, because I've had some talk from someone from London. But I think the next step really is your e-books. I think that's the way everyone's going, because everyone is basically either reading them online or they've got, like you say, the e-book reader. And I think that's kind of the way it's going.
You can't afford not to be part of that now.
No, I mean, you can't kind of shun it and say, I'm not going to do that, because that's where everyone is and that's your audience now. And you can sit at home and do it in front of your computer. You don't have to be out there in the real world.
Oh, you don't even have to get dressed. You can stay in your gym jams, can't you, and do that. It's great.
And your hand and your phones as well, your iPhones, something like that. You can get it all on there. So it's the way forwards, definitely. I
was just say, a lot of interest in Annie, based over in San Francisco. The two of you have never met, I assume.
Definitely not. I hope to see if I can link up with her via video next year, because she said she's doing some more. So we'll see how that goes. But no, we've never met. We've talked a lot, Facebook, and via email, and she's a really nice lady. So hopefully that will progress next year, and then more will come out of that.
Blank sheet of paper. Look ahead 5 years. What would you like to see written down on that bit of paper so that you could look back and say, yeah, did that?
I don't think it's necessarily while I tick all the boxes. I think just that people are reading my work. I think it's not a case of achieving everything, because I think more important to me is that my work's getting out there and it's getting to the right people, as opposed to ticking all the right boxes. That's more important to me, that everyone knows who I am and kind of reads my words, because my words are basically what is more important than anything else to me.
Well, your words are ticking my boxes. They're ticking Annie's boxes as well, and her voice.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How would you feel? What if the thoughts in your head became real? What if you loved me? If only the ones I pictured the future being us.
Wonderful voice. Now, you've getting some local coverage as well as global internet coverage, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're in a magazine beginning of January.
Well, I actually got the Pick Me Up magazine, which is out on the 29th. Diversifying again, I wrote a poem. Well, somebody on Facebook asked me to write a poem for her, and she had it tattooed on her body for 4 hours of pain.
That's a poem in itself. I think about that.
And Pick Me Up are going to run in on the 29th of this month, and then In Your Vicinity magazine next month are going to be running a thing about me as well. So there's 2 more things coming up.
And is that lady Northampton?
No, I think York, I think.
Yeah.
But she's UK, and that was just a chance of her emailing me and saying, do you want to do this? And I said, yeah, because you have to grab everything with both hands and say, I'll do it, even though it's out of your comfort zone a little bit. You think that's a bit strange, but I did it, and we've got a magazine article out of it. So you just can't take anything for granted, and you've got to say yes to everything.
Now, if people want to find out more about some of the YouTube coverage you've got, they can go on YouTube.
Yep. I've got all the previous people that have done voices, like for me. There's a few celebrities, actors and actresses from the UK, and a few American, and also a lot of YouTubers who've recorded my words into song. And my channel ID is Mills, MILLS MC 1977.
OK, well, we wish you well with your continued writing, and do let us know how things are going in 2012, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Putting pen to paper or fingers on keyboards, and that transatlantic link with Annie. I think there's a market for her type of voice and singing. And,
definitely.
Well, certainly from the number of YouTube hits that she's been getting with it. That's fantastic. And it must be nice to go to bed at night with a smile on your face knowing that you've been responsible for that.
It's nice to know that your words are taken on a different form as well and can still be accepted even though they're in a different format.
James, good to talk to you. Merry Christmas.
And
although
you.
It's a little bit early, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.